Okay, let's try this again. Okay.
Okay. How does it
So,
sound? Can you hear me now?
yeah, audio's recording, video's recording.
No feedback?
No feedback from what I saw, so
Yeah, it's always worth a shot. We can always redo it later. Like we said, this is just a dry run.
right, exactly. Anyhow,
So we know what's
what have
so
you been up to, Dad? Let's just start there, I guess.
surviving. So,
Well, you just came out of surgery.
well, it's 4 weeks today.
Okay.
So, and when I went into this, the doctor originally said, I remember him telling this, he's not inaccurate. I just took a different. So he says, yeah, we'll do the surgery. He says, and it's not outpatient. You'll be in the hospital a couple of nights, one
Yep.
night, maybe two. You go home. We'll make you sure that you're walking like the first day of surgery or the day after. You'll definitely be walking before you leave the hospital. Like awesome. So when I met with him, with your mother, who's skeptical of my, how I overly simplify things. So I met with him. I said, so basically, I'll be honest, it's like outpatient, because that's what I've been telling, well, particularly Oma, to make her feel good about it. I said, oh, it's like outpatient. He goes, no, it's serious surgery, but you said I'd be walking after that. It's like, yeah, no, it's serious surgery. Like, oh, I don't know what that means now. So yeah, so they did the surgery. That's fine. I had, I would say, non-life threatening complications that sent me back,
Right.
um, and so, but the point there is the healing took longer than expected. I'm still healing after 4 weeks. I still have a pain in my abdomen, which the doctor nonchalantly finally told me, "Oh yeah, we cut up a lot of nerves. It's just reconnecting now." Like, oh, well, okay, that would have been good to know. So that's been the issue. The lungs kind of coming back and taking some of my air, and sometimes start having a coughing fit. I'm
Sure.
still having that. So this is 4 weeks later, and I expected to be done in 2 weeks because it was simple. It was almost like outpatient. How did my doctor lie to me? Well, he didn't. I just took it differently than I was listening. But the truth is that nothing was as life threatening. It was just complicated. And what I found out with coming back from surgery, and particularly on your lung, that you don't know what to expect. I mean, they know things that can happen, but
Right.
it's not like it's like a root canal. They know exactly this is what's going to happen 100% of the time. He's like, well, it could be this, it could be that. So to answer
Right.
your question, I'm doing it. I'm recovering. I actually did my 2 mile walk today that I've not done in months.
Oh, nice.
At a slower pace,
You got through it.
but got through it, and that was my accomplishment. My pain as of yesterday in my abdomen is subsiding. It's kind of like a sunburn, kind of the tingling and the nerve pain, and that's been the issue.
So it
So
feels like there's a sunburn in your on your skin or like in your body.
kind of like on the skin,
Yeah.
although if oddly enough you touch the skin, it's numb. There's no connections right now, so it's
Hmm.
weird. But to answer your question, if you think about having a sunburn on your stomach, or something like that,
Sure.
that's kind of the pain. It's the burning kind of thing.
Yeah. Oddly enough, that's how I explain to people what tear gas feels like, but on the
Oh,
inside
sure,
of your
because everyone
throat.
goes through tear gas. Yeah, it's
Yeah. So tear gas feels like a sunburn, like a bad sunburn on the inside of your throat.
I'm just sad that you know that.
It's okay. It's an experience. It's more of a bar story now than anything else, to be honest.
But having to go through it,
I
yeah,
mean, there's a reason you go through it, right? There's a reason they put you through it. It's not a huge deal. I mean, the grand scheme of things. So
yeah.
maybe I'm at a point in my life where that perspective, I'm able to take that perspective more than anything else, right? Where it's like, yeah, but it's just tear gas.
Yeah. Anyway, as a parent, and when you went through that 10 weeks in the summer in South Carolina in boot camp, was probably one of the hardest times for me and mom to deal with, right? Because we knew you were going through
Sure.
stuff, we couldn't contact you, and we had no idea you're going through tear gas. But had we known, oh, we should have told Oma, she would have freaked out.
Ah,
And
it's
we know
fine.
it's all part of the training, and
Right,
you'll
right,
be
right.
fine. Everyone survives it. But as a parent, that was kind of tough for us, just having. I know you have to go through it. And one of the most, I remember having such a big sigh of relief when I saw you on graduation day.
I
That
do
was a
remember that when I enlisted, when I went, personally, I mean, I was 18 years old. All I was thinking was like, wow, I'm really sticking it to mom and dad. Felt really good. And then I
how did
got
that
tear,
work?
and then
And how
and
did
then I
that
got
work?
tear gassed. So
Yeah. So see, well, actually, what probably happened is I think mom called them, and she knew
yeah,
that. She probably said, "Can you tear gas the kid? Get a little
actually,
respect out of
you
it." But
know
it worked.
what? Oddly, I was thinking about this today, and that wasn't even one of the worst things that happened in boot camp. I mean, that was whatever, right? I mean, you you're in there for 10 minutes or whatever. You come out, you flap your arms, and you blink a bunch, and it wears off after another 10 or so minutes, um, and it sticks to your clothes. So you got to change afterwards. Oh, thank you, honey. Appreciate it. You want to say hi to dad? That's the belly bump. That's your
Oh,
grandson.
look, that's my grandson. That is awesome.
Don't pat him.
Oh, sorry.
You have to
Stop.
eat.
Yeah, that's enough. It's like the cat. Stop it. I'm done.
Yeah, right, exactly. So, um, there was another day in boot camp. I got tons of stories, I guess, when I think about it. But there was another day in boot camp where we were in the field. We're just doing random training exercises, and I went to lay down, and I laid down on a fire ant hill.
Ooh,
And if you've never been attacked by fire ants, it is very quick. I laid down, and within about 10 seconds, I was covered head to toe in ants. And I didn't even care if I got in trouble. I just stood up, I started yelling, and started pouring all my water on me to try to get them off. It was awful. It was so bad. Well, that was a
wow.
fun day.
So
Yeah,
now
I'd take tear gas over fire ants any day of the week.
and that's how cool you are. That's why you're a superhero. Like, oh, the one time I got tear gas, it was no big deal. No, fire ants. Most people are like, we have no idea what that is, so
No,
better you than
the
me.
potato to potato.
Exactly.
No.
Look, all I know is that was a really tough time to not know what was going on, and I think it was better that we didn't know what was going on. In many ways, we were lucky to see photos. I guess they
Yeah.
would post pictures sometimes, and we would look, at all the 100 pictures to see if we could see you, and
Yep,
there were a
yep.
few. And at the end of the day, I mean, I know that you guys were raised, well, I should say most of my kids were raised pretty tough. So, I knew you get by and you know how to do it, and most people survive it just fine. So what are the odds? But still, knowing
Yeah,
you had to go through that was kind of hard.
it was. I mean, I think it was formative in a lot of ways for me at the
Oh
time.
no, make no mistake. I think the value and that you got out of it and the person that you came out of it, how you changed, it was phenomenal. Make no mistake. Um, but just because it's good for your kid doesn't mean it's easy for me, right?
Yeah, and that's fair. And that's actually a conversation Ashley and I have had a couple times, right? Asking about, what if Leo says, I want to join the army, right? And what happens if my son wants to join? And personally, having gone through it, I'd be like, yeah, do what you got to do. If that's if that's where you want to be, sure, I'm not going to stop it. And Ashley's on a similar page. She's not a fan of that way of thinking, I guess. But I'd also, on the flip end, I'd never be the one to suggest it. I'd never be like, oh, this is what you should do with your life. You need to go enlist and you need to have these experiences. It's just that it's not A, my decision to make, or B, it's not a decision for everybody, right? I don't think my siblings. I think at one time AJ asked me. Well, I think he was sort of in a limbo period with his education and where he is now, and he asked me if he thinks he should enlist and what he should do about that. And I told him no, I don't. And that's, I mean, personality aside, I don't think it's an experience everybody needs to have.
Well, I know your brother. He just would have been court-martialed. And we would have laughed about it because he's
Yeah,
probably right. He get court-martialed, but he's going to say, "But Dad, I was right." Like, well, you were right. So it's kind of funny. But yeah, some people have to be more wired for it. Look, at the end of the day, it was never. There's a certain point, probably 16, as your kid, there's certain decisions you don't make from them. So you're suggesting like I would never decide or tell him to go in the army. Well, it doesn't matter. By the time he's thinking that, it's not. It's a suggestion. Everything you do is going to be a suggestion.
right.
So the question becomes, if you talk about it, no, there's nothing wrong with encouraging or giving the pluses and minuses is probably the better way to do it. And even encouraging it. I've encouraged, for example, I've encouraged college for all you kids.
Encourage is I wouldn't say encourage. I would say it's you encouraged the same way that mom asked if I wanted to do the dishes.
Anyway, so
Make sure we're on the same page on that one.
I suppose. I mean, I don't, first of all, revisionist history. You might remember things differently than I would, or the impact. This is my
Sure.
mistake.
Yeah, maybe that's what the impact is different.
My
depending on the
suggestion
site.
may have been you may have interpreted as Dad's telling me to do this, and that was never my intent or in tone, and maybe that's how you took it. But and I got better at how to suggest about college or messaging about college. But the bottom line is I can see that you do the same thing. It's just like, look, here's my experience, here's the pluses and minuses. It's here's a funny thing. I think it did wonders for you. And would you want to deprive your son of that, right? So, or daughter, should you have a daughter in the
Sure,
future?
sure.
Thing, right? So would you want to deprive him of the opportunity to become as disciplined or more focused or whatever you came out, however you want to define it? Do you want to deprive them of that? So it wouldn't be wrong for you to maybe encourage it if you truly believe that. And that was the mission.
Right.
But encouraging and quote, making the decision for them. You stop making decisions for kids by the time they're teenagers. Only even if you make it, they're not going to listen to it.
So then, were there any decisions of mine that I made as a teenager that you weren't supportive of back, geez, however many years ago that is now, if you can remember?
Not that I
If
recall.
anything sticks out.
No, nothing sticks out. Um, you didn't challenge us much. So, I
It's just
mean, you,
out of the
it was
house.
pretty much, go to school, play soccer, however you want to do
Right.
it, whatever sports, but usually it was soccer. And make sure you hang out with friends. I think you pretty much did everything you wanted to. And so we were fine with that. I don't think we had a particular bent. In fact, I had a conversation with your brother, your older brother, about our, and they were talking about, he's talking about, raising kids and the idea. He explained to us, he knew the idea for moms of my kids was that they would be better off than mom and I were. So that they would have more or be better off. And I thought that was funny because and I told him this before, like, that was not our mission. I mean, yes, I understand. My parents were immigrants, right? So
Mhm.
they came from Holland. They came here. My father had to go to night school, working full time, even though he was already an engineer. They didn't recognize a degree here, so he had to go to night school to do that. Turned out to be a hell of an aerospace engineer, blah blah blah, right?
Right.
But they had to do what they had to do, and they really wanted it for their kids to be better because that's one reason why they came here. They came from war, blah blah blah, all of that, right? So that's what they wanted. But by the time mom and I were raised, it was like, well, our life really didn't suck. I mean, we had challenges. We can talk about how in my day, Oma wouldn't have Tupperware because that was too expensive. It was always using the
There
finished
are
up.
some challenges with Oma that I think we have shared experiences with, such as her lack of ability to put any meat on a sandwich.
That is completely untrue. We were allowed to have meat on the sandwich, provided it was one sliver of it,
One
but
sliver of
quite
meat.
thin, and that was it. That was it. But
I hope you enjoy the taste of butter or mayo.
I didn't. I hated both. So as a result, I didn't like sandwiches until later. I remember this. I went to a deli. I think I was finally working. I bought a sandwich, like a roast beef sandwich. I ate it. Like, wait, there's way too much meat on here. This is good. Like, oh, that's what a sandwich is. So yes, there's different things. But when it came to our kids, it wasn't. We were fine. Our quality of life, your
Oh, I
mother,
agree.
our quality of life was good. You guys had every opportunity for things you wanted, good school district, good neighborhood, and so on and so forth. You didn't want for anything, although we didn't spoil you a lot, but we didn't want for anything. So we expected that you would do a similar lifestyle, plus or minus. It's up to you. In other
Mhm.
words, we never designed our thoughts to be more than we had and more than we were. It wasn't like you got to be a doctor or anything. That was not the intention. In fact, and I admit, I realized as I can articulate it better as I was older, but we always wanted what you wanted out of life. To me, I like college because it helped your critical thinking. That's
Sure.
what that was about. I don't care what your degree is in. I don't care what you do for a living. As long as when you do make a living out of college, what you make, you're not jealous of other people that they have other things that you don't have, given what you've chosen for your path, and that you don't require any other money from the government or the family to survive otherwise. It was really just pick the lifestyle you want and the job that you really love. I don't care what it is. So that has been our model. And so, yes, maybe you might have less than us, maybe you have more than us. Don't really care. It's never been about that. And it was funny because your brother AJ brought that up, um, and I wasn't sure what your perspective was. I mean, was your perspective that what we wanted for you was more than we had, or
It's yeah, so, and this is, I think, where a lot of disconnect happens. Is as a kid, you don't understand what your parents are doing might be the best course or the typical best course for from their formative experiences that they've had, right? And it's only now that I'm realizing, like, oh, I'm gonna have to, like, there's gonna be some things that I'm going to do probably for my son that are not going to be appreciated by him because he's just not going to understand, and I'm not going to be able to explain it well enough without him having some innate experience with the matter, like buying a house, right, or taking a house for granted, or what have you, right? So like having the fact that there's a secure roof over your head, and then doing what you need to do to ensure that secure roof over your head, which might mean um, cutting certain extracurricular activities, or having less meat on your sandwich. What? whatever that might be. So, and I know that as a kid, actually personally, I've always just been pretty loose and fast with how I felt, right? So there wasn't a lot of things that you and mom did that upset me necessarily. But I believe, and this once again all comes down to how everybody's perspectives are different. There are a lot of situations where I believe my siblings were burdened in a way or another that in a roundabout way kind of came back to me. My
For
siblings,
example,
so
for
like my
example,
siblings are um having issues at home with X, Y, and Z. And a lot of them feel comfortable talking to me about it. And then it's not that I can't really do anything about their issues. Um, but now all of a sudden I have some sort of weird ingrained responsibility. At least that's how it has felt,
yeah, I
right?
can understand that.
God forbid my siblings watch this, and then I'm gonna get
Oh, they will.
three
They
text
will.
messages like, I've never done that to you. So yes, you have. Um, and this is on record, and your words aren't. So suck it. Is really kind of what it boils down to. That being said, I think my coping mechanism as a kid was to distance myself from the family as much as I could. Right? For better or for worse, I just got out of the house. I was with friends. I was playing video games. I was away. And it's not that I guess didn't understand what you and mom were trying to do for me. It's just that I felt that I was the quintessential middle child. Who cares what Ryan thinks? So I'm leaving. I think is kind of how it sort of manifested
Hmm. Yeah, we knew that.
for a long-winded response as it
Yeah,
is.
no, we knew that. I mean, each kid is different, and how they respond. Um, you know, we raise kids over 30, as far as from birth to adulthood, it was 33 years or 36, can't remember. I think it was
Sure.
33 years, right? Total of raising kids. And in that time, even, as your mother and I, as people we change.
Mm,
Um, we learn as well what's important and what's not, and that can evolve unrelated to kids, or maybe because of kids both, depending what the issue is, but that would evolve. So the rules that we apply and the knowledge and the wisdom we apply, in year 28 versus in year two of raising a kid could differ.
sure.
And so, yes, it might be different sometimes. And this is why, I open up with, I'm sorry, I apologize. I know I've made mistakes as a dad. I've noted that much more now, right? Given the point in time, that's all I knew. And so, now that I'm a grandparent, it's even better, right? Because now I see it, and the things I hear from your sister about raising a teenage daughter, it's like, oh yeah, no, we remember that. Well, no, it was never like that. Yeah, no, that we
Well,
had.
oddly enough, and I think it's cyclical in a weird way, right? So Ashley and I have conversations where between our experiences growing up, we would say something along the lines of, "Oh, we did not like how our parents handled this situation X, right? And whether that be punishment, whether that be chores, whatever, right?" And we both go, "Okay, we want to do better for our son," right? I think that's a natural instinct. And I have to assume, I'd hope to assume that you and mom had similar conversations when it came to raising children. There were probably things that grandma, grandpa, oma, opa did that maybe you probably weren't appreciative as a kid and you wanted to do better for your kids. At which point that opens up issues that you didn't foresee, which are now the things that I don't want to do for my kids, which will
Hmm.
open up issues for them that they will want to. You see,
Oh yeah,
where
no.
I don't really think I don't think there's winning in this situation.
Oh God, no. It's not really a vicious cycle. It just leaps usually by generation.
Right.
But the short answer is yes. I mean, not that we had no. Mom and I had very few structured dialogue about what do we do about this and what do we do about that.
Sure.
Now, keep in mind, by the time Mom and I got together, we already had this, 4 to 6
That's right.
year
That's
old.
true.
So I was parenting from day one, and I'm not talking about an infant. I'm talking about somebody who knew how to argue and ask a lot of questions. She was always the why person, always ask why and everything. So anyway, so we didn't have a structured conversation. In fact, we would do things not knowing why, and eventually it would manifest from because this is what our parents did and we didn't want to be like that. And that could have been more structure, less structure,
Sure.
whatever it is, right? Um, mom would tell me, for example, she's less concerned about what the house looks like than she wants to spend time with her kids. And it took a while, but it manifested because not that grandma was great, her mother was great, but she wanted to make sure she spent time cleaning the house. And in retrospect, mom saw that as time away from the kids. And
Sure.
so what does that mean? Well, that means maybe, our kids will be more tidy and want to do more of that and less time with the kids. Again, it goes back to your
Yeah,
cycle.
right.
So we
Like,
don't
oh, I
know.
hated how big of a mess my house was growing up. Something,
Exactly.
right?
And so, but it wasn't about, we didn't have structured conversations about it much. And maybe that was our parenting style. We did not have, meetings that we sit there and talk about it. Usually it was the spur of the moment. We look at each other, we make a call, we come back and say, did we make the right call?
Right.
And sometimes we would reverse calls and not tell you why. Right. And maybe it was because I made a mistake and mom had it right. And somehow we couldn't show too much divisiveness. So we
Right. Right.
call
Right.
it something under reconsideration. Maybe we should do this or, negotiate through it. But we did do time for that. We would take time for that. But yeah, no, it is based on what we've experienced before and do things we don't want to do. And two things happens about the things that you're not going to do. I guarantee you, and it's absolute. There's two things that'll happen as a result of saying, I will never do that with my kid. And some things absolutely you will, and other things you absolutely will not. And you don't know which is which. Because you will find out sometimes either naturally this is what you do and that's who I am as a person. Remember, don't forget a parent is a person that comes out in their character and the personality, regardless of being a parent. That might come out. And other times it was like, no, that really bothered me. I think, I'd like structured argument better or whatever. So for example, with me, what I didn't like with Opus and my stepdad was, he didn't articulate very well. He was never good in articulation. He would anger up. I didn't understand why. And so I'd argue with him and his arguments wouldn't hold. So we were upset. And finally, I remember, and I was almost an adult by then, and Oma came to me and she says, no, you're right. He doesn't articulate very well. And it was the first time I think, oh my God, I had it right. And then why don't you tell me this before? And ever since then, after that, they were better articulating. And then, of course, I'm really good about articulating with my kids as to what we're doing. I'm not doing let's have a long conversation and see how you feel about it. But it was a matter of, no, this doesn't work because of X, Y, and Z. So if you're going to be upset, I want you to understand why you're
So
upset.
actually, it's funny you mentioned that. And this is an issue that I took
This is
as a
going
kid.
this is going to backfire.
This is
Man.
backfire you right now. And I don't know how once again, can't speak for my siblings because AJ might have a different, I think AJ maybe functions different where he thinks, okay, I know the reasons you're mad. Here are my reasons that circumvent those reasons and so on and so forth. He kind of maybe flourishes under that situation a little better. As somebody who's not very argumentative, as somebody who just wanted to know the reason and kind of be done with it and just, cool, get your scolding over with so I can go do something else. It felt very disheartening as a kid to bring something up maybe that I wanted or didn't want or what have you, only for it to be shot down before any argument was made. Right? I'd bring something up. You'd say, okay, I see your point of view. Here's why X, Y, and Z reasons why your point of view doesn't work. This is what we're going to do instead. And I would go, I'm going to dance. And that's kind of more or less how over-explaining may have the opposite effect on what maybe you experienced growing up with Opa under-explaining.
So you would rather have the quick response of no?
I'd rather have the quick response of no. I'd rather have what would feel like at least the option or even just the illusion that there's a dialogue there. Right? You'd say no. I would say, oh, but here are my reasons, instead of you already thinking through my obviously 8-10-year-old level logical reasoning, right? And then you'd go, okay, I see your point of view a little bit, and then kind of go forward. Whereas I get it, in sake of efficiency, in sake of having 5 kids, right? Sake of time, right? Like, look, I know where you're going with this. Here's where you're going with it. The answer is no.
I don't know. Maybe. I mean, I understand that. I think you're right. If I didn't give the opportunity, maybe I should have. And that's going to happen because up until the kid is 18 years old, there'll be 10,147 arguments you'll have with them.
Right.
Sometimes I may have missed some of those. So, and not fired well. And the funny thing is that what we're discovering too, Mom and I, it's the things of the 10,147 arguments we had, we didn't realize that number 8,027 was the one that you actually learned and heard and harbor as the mistake that we had. They're like, oh, that one's the one that you remember. And of
Yeah,
course,
right, right,
and
right.
what it does, it defines all the other 10,147 results. And it was that one that had the impact.
Yep.
And we're like, that's what was your takeaway? That one time? You
Mhm.
mean the time that mom was screaming in labor and we were on the way to the hospital, whatever it is, right? Maybe it was a bad example for
Sure.
you to take at the time, and maybe we should have been more thoughtful about it. But we smile like that's not how we remember it. There were 10,146 arguments you could have taken away from it. That's the one you took the lesson
Yeah.
from. We were joking or we got it wrong. And
Yeah, right.
if we knew
Or it
that
was a
was the
bad
one,
day, or
yeah, exactly.
it,
If we knew that was the one, we would have invested time to deal with it.
right.
We don't know as a parent. And every single one of you kids have come back with, well, it was that time that did this. They're like, that's the one. If we even remembered, we're like,
Yeah, right.
that's
You're
the
like,
one. That was your takeaway
you're like,
of that one?
somebody's have to roll back the clip,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
right,
Right.
and I think
Put the flag on the field for replay. That's what you want.
right,
And it's
and
like, that's not, and we don't know that. And I hear things just like,
sure,
had I known at the time that's how you responded and felt,
sure, it
I
would have been
would have
different.
invested the time. I would have invested the time.
And it, I mean, and on the flip end, right, as an adult, as somebody who works full time, coming home, being exhausted from just being at work, being mentally active for 8+ hours, what have it, you know, the thought of having to also then mentally engage a 6-year-old, 7-year-old, what it might be, is terrifying at the moment. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to handle that well.
No,
It's,
no.
it's just, I'm tired. I don't want to deal with this. It's the answer is no. And the reasons are because,
Exactly. So the answer is no, you're not going to dance. I'm done.
yeah,
Right. And that was the time. And that's the one you remember. I'm making it up. But I mean
right,
that
sure, exactly. Right, right, right. So
as a
it's,
parent, we don't know which one. If we knew which one resonated, because there are teachable moments. There
for
are
sure.
things why this is why parents repeat things over and over again, because you don't know which time it's going to resonate. Had we had if any parent, and to any parent out there, including yourself, if you actually have the combination, if you have the secret, right,
Yeah.
that you know exactly which argument's going to resonate, please pick that time to sit down and work it through. The problem is the universe doesn't work that way. Right? It doesn't tell you that this is the one that's going to resonate. The kid at that time doesn't even know it's going to resonate until 10 years later, and they say it was that one time that changed my whole behavior.
Exactly. And I
And I
think,
didn't
right,
know.
and in this instance, it led me, and I'm thinking about it now, is this whole sort of formative relationship with you and mom about being adverse to arguing led me into the direction of I'm just gonna ask for forgiveness than permission,
Yeah,
right? And like is if they're gonna say no, I'm just gonna do it and deal with the consequences. And that now has its own manifestations in problems with my current relationship. So there are things that I'll do, and Ashley be like, "Why didn't we?" I mean, that we're quite past that now, but there were definitely times she'd be like, "Why didn't you talk to me about this? Why didn't we?" It was like a simple discussion. We just used, and I would just do things without sort of consulting her because that's just how I was. I did my thing, and if somebody had something wrong with it, so be it. But then I got into a relationship where I can't say so be it because it's a person I care about more so than my ability to have that decision. So that's where things got complicated.
no, no, but either way, right? I mean, um, you can imagine just as well if we trained you to be over analytical at some point in the relationship, in your case with Ashley, she's going to say, could you make an effing decision once and for all? Well, I'm still analyzing, right? So it's a matter of your relationships. You're all going to have to make adjustments.
Yeah,
That's
right,
why they
right,
say
right.
there's compromise in marriage. It's because it's not fair about, well, this is who I am. And while they can't, the counterparty, the spouse can't say you need to change. I have to decide to change for the spouse because it's like, oh yeah, you don't think that way. I should be more thoughtful about this approach, right?
Yep.
So, but yeah, so either way, it is who you are and what you do. So, but we've had those. No, each kid is different, and you were interesting how you say that. Either because of us or in spite of us, like meaning your parents. I can't figure it out.
Little column A, little
You,
column B.
well, yeah, but I mean, in spite either one is, but you are who you are. We knew you were you were the best one to fly under the radar. You were genius at flying under the radar. If it was a matter of you had a choice between, well, not choice, but it was like homework had to be done and you want to play outside.
Yep.
So, and you had an extraordinary example of your older brother who himself was extraordinary in arguing why he didn't have to do homework for 2.5 hours, just to have to do it anyway. And he never had time to play. What you learned was, I'm coming home doing the homework so I can go play. You were done within 20 minutes, an hour. It's a 20-minute assignment. What's the big deal? You learn from that. You were the one that just did what you had to be done so that you can do what you want. And by the way, there's a level of genius in that that frankly, your brother and I envy. The ability to not overthink.
I'm really hoping that for the most part, my son does not inherit the argumentative gene that flows so heavily through, I feel, both you and mom, because I'm just gonna get screwed. I just don't have the
I
practice.
disagree. Yeah,
I just don't have the practice. He's gonna bounce off Ashley all the time. They're gonna go at it, and I'm gonna be like sitting here like, ask your mother.
Yeah, it's up to you. I mean, I think it's an excellent trait to have. Make no mistake, everything is between, for example, your older brother and you are complete opposites insofar as you approach things. He likes to think about things, you like to execute, to ask questions later. Completely different. Neither one is wrong. It's just what works for you. And like I said, the thing that we have is we kind of know by the time we make a decision, because AJ and I are similar, we'll have walked through our options and we'll execute. Now maybe it's too late, but we'll execute. You will go and execute, and we're always baffled how you can be wrong 98% of the time. Just by shooting from the hip. It's like, damn it. Why did we think about it? Because we would have made the same decision you made. You just came to it quicker. Like, I'm doing this. Okay. Anyway, so
I mean, it has its drawbacks. It's not. Yeah. It requires the inflexibleness of snap decisions. Requires a very flexible person.
Yes. This is true. This is true.
Because I don't make contingencies, because I don't think out all of the avenues. I have to then, when something doesn't work out, be very okay that it's not working out. Which, once again, was fine when I was single. Now that I'm married and have a wife that does not operate that way, it becomes a challenge.
Well, of course, but that's because she's making you better and vice versa. Right. You married the right person.
That goes without saying because we're being recorded.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. She can hear this, exactly. But truly, you to get somebody who's more opposite from you like that, I think is excellent. I mean, that gets the best out of you, and vice versa. I'm assuming that she's doing things and having adventures she would never have if it weren't for you, because you're like, let's just do this and let's just go, let's just buy it, let's not buy it, let's go on the road, let's get coffee, let's have dinner, let's do whatever. Let's not overthink it and go. She has a benefit.
Be careful, because she's gonna see this and be like, so when are we gonna get dinner, hon? When are we gonna get coffee? When are all these things happening? Be like, damn it, Dad.
Aren't they? You should be. You should do this. So, and I only know that because your mom does that for me.
Yeah.
Your mom's the adventurous one. I'm the one that likes to, plan my spontaneity. I'm very good at that. So mom's like, let's just do this. Let's just do that. And if I didn't have that, I wouldn't have lots of things, including 5 kids. Yep. But I wouldn't have lots of things. And so, because mom just said, oh, let's just do it. And, we always seem to work it out. And, life is too short to not do this, whatever it is. Like, we're going on a trip to Europe, right? So, would I do that? Would I have thought of that a year ago? No, it's cost us expensive. It's this. Maybe we shouldn't. What happens if I'm sick at that? You think a year in advance. Mom's like, okay. And as I'm sitting here talking to her, she's like, what? I just bought the tickets. We're done. Okay. Oh, I guess we're going. And it'll be the best thing we've done in a long time. So it's nice to have somebody like that. But anyway, going back to how we approached and how we try to explain, or how we want to be different than our parents. Some of it, you're going to discover it's like you're going to react to your kid, son or daughter, no matter what your future is, right? So your son, you're going to react to them, and it's going to hit you and that's exactly, I am my dad now. It's going to hit you.
Oh, it's already happened. We'll park somewhere at Hy-Vee. We'll go to the grocery store and we'll park, and I go, ooh, rock star parking. Ooh, right,
the dad jokes are kicking
like weird nuances that I do, and Ashley, like, who are you? And I'm like, well, my father, apparently. So
well, you could be worse.
Yeah, it could be.
So but no, it's I get that. I get it. So, well, it all works out. I mean, there's a lot of things we can cover. I mean, the upshot about these conversations we have, and as more as we go forward, yep. We'll isolate it to we can fine tune it to talk about when. About things we talked about, like or at least listed, like balancing work and family, and so in other words, the themes that we have here that we put on the table is right. A clearinghouse of kind of just settling as to where we are. It's just we're just balancing, and I hate this term. It's the corporate term, level setting, our understanding of each other, and then we can apply it in different situations as we go forward and do
Yep.
some of these. I think would be
Do
good,
some
which
of the
is,
topics
you know,
and
what I mean, to be your soccer coach, was that easy? Was that hard? Was it? What did you think about that? You know, working and balancing work. I mean, I think I did not. I don't think I'm a workaholic, and I don't think I projected to you guys that work was more important than home. I don't know if that actually is true because I didn't ask you. So
that's
those
true.
kinds of
I
things
mean,
we
I
can talk
don't think
about
it
going
was,
forward.
but I see what you're saying. Yeah, there's a lot of things that I mean, it's gonna be probably in large part just therapy, but cheaper. Maybe that's what this is. Really, it's just yeah, it's really
Absolutely.
just I'm just looking to get some talk therapy out of this and just vent a little bit more than anything else. And right, you're 1,500 miles away, and I'm less reliant on you than I have ever been. So I can really just say the things that I want to now. So it's that's why I suggested this. But
Well, I
um,
also think that you're emboldened because you now have my grandson, and so you can
that's
threaten.
leverage.
That's leverage
That's
there right now.
leverage.
Leverage.
Yeah.
So yes, you are right, Ryan. I made a
Uh,
mistake when I did that. So when can I see,
yeah.
my grandson? So I will lie and concede everything I have.
Yeah.
I don't care. But no, I think that's important. So as we go forward, we can put it in certain situations. And
Right.
again, I think the important part is I'm not suggesting I have answers or I got it right. I'm curious to see your feedback and what I got wrong.
Sure.
I will tell you that pretty much every instance in every one of you kids, um, in every single one, I know when I shifted my relationship with you guys, insofar as approach and certain things that you thought about me. And um, I'll just give yours and your example. I remember this. You were in fourth grade, and you were worried because you got in trouble for talking too much in class,
Hmm.
and I think you had to either put your name on the board or go up
Wait.
front.
Here's the. I think I know what day you're talking about, and it wasn't. I didn't get in trouble because I mean I think I was talking. This is a crystal clear memory of mine. Um, and I think about it at least once every 2 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, I was probably talking, but more importantly, the teacher was lecturing. She was talking about something. It was very quiet, and for some reason, I knew the reason. I had some mucus in my throat. I decided to hawk the loudest loogie that I could in that moment. I did everything in my power to just make sure everybody heard this. And my teacher was like, "Ryan, you need to go outside."
Oh, that may have been I
I'm
think it's
almost
enough.
certain that had to have been it.
Well,
That
I
had
know
to have been it.
that you were. All I know is what my recollection. Again, these are how recollections change. It might be the same
Sure.
event. There were four people at the table. You were one of them,
Yep.
and you were all talking or whatever. And somehow you got, I want to say detention. I want to say it was fourth grade. But you got in trouble for that, and you had to tell us that for some reason, or we got a note or
Yeah,
something.
I probably had to hand you like a slip that you had to
Yeah,
sign.
and I think that you were nervous about that, in some sense. It's just by the way you
Sure.
responded, because now you had to admit that you made a mistake to your parents who were, and my response to you was like, "Hey, your teacher's nuts." It's
Yeah.
like, I looked at mom's like, he talks. He's the one that talks a lot. He's the jokester. It's going to happen. I said, I'm not going to let this be a big deal. It's not a big deal, Ryan. And your eyes widened up like, oh, you mean teachers could be crazy too? Like, yeah. I said, somehow that was a connection of you understood that we understood who you were because we really knew who you were and appreciated that and didn't beat you all the time on things or
Yeah.
whatever it was. It was something that for you, it was that opportunity that you realized that, oh, there is a difference here. And my parents do have my back. I do remember that. That was your thing. I remember where you were. I remember what had happened when we said that and how your eyes got bigger and understood that. And they said, yeah, we'll sign it. No big deal. It's not a big, and I wanted to make sure you understood, Ryan, it's not a big deal because it's who you are. And I don't want you to change who you are. That was the premise. So those are the kind of things that we have with our kids that we all kind of, we start showing. And then the tough part about parenting is now you're showing your cards about,
Mm.
as a parent, what's okay and what's not and whatever.
And now
And
I'm
so
like, oh, but you said I can be
exactly.
loud and disruptive. So
Exactly.
is church different than school, Dad? Like, what's the?
Yeah, well,
All
that's
right. Yeah.
I still every time at mass, I still want to clap when they're done with music midway through mass. That was genius part on your part. I mean, genius of what you did, but that I mean, it's horrible in the moment, but the look you would have on your face when you wanted to clap, and it's like you can't clap during mass. And then a
Says
couple
who?
times,
Why can't you? Clapping for the Lord.
Because, well, no, because the Pope said so. So you can't clap. And
I'm gonna
and
need a
then
written statement somewhere
a
about
couple
that.
and a couple times you did, and people started clapping and not knowing why. And you're laughing,
You get the
and
group think
I'm
going.
like, Brian, that's horrible, and I am cracking up like what genius that was, because that's human nature. You knew it. You must have been like, I don't know, 8 or 9, and you did this a few times, and it was genius just how you can control the masses with that, no pun intended. And so it was to me, I'll never forget that, because that's who you are. And then when it comes to parenting, who the kid is and who the and the box in which society puts you doesn't always match. And sometimes you're okay with that and you want your kid to know it, but they're also in a formidable age that you want to make sure that they still learn what the box is. They weren't ready to understand what the box is. Once it's nailed down, you know what the boxes are, you go outside the boxes. That's fine. I mean, within reason, right? Don't
Right,
go
right,
to
right.
people, but that's within reason. As you get older, it's okay. But the parents are supposed to decide, here are the boundaries in which you can work. If you go outside them, that's your call. But sometimes you're too young, because now you think you created a boundary to be bigger, right? It's like, no, 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 the boundary's still here. It's not here. When Dad was laughing at church about what genius that was outside the boundaries, Ryan, and then I'm in trouble for
The
laughing.
box size doesn't change. It just moves places. It's
It was
really what it is. The size doesn't
so.
change. The spot changes.
So you would think this is where it's going. No, 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 that's not how it works. But again, you have to respond to and having 5 children, you have to respond to who the kid is and the strengths and weaknesses, right? And so I will blindly and absolutely, I raised every single one of you differently, right? I
Hmm.
mean, a lot of the same morals and fundamentals, of course, were the same,
Sure.
but how you respond to something versus AJ or Danielle or Evan or Emma is different. And so we would say it different, time it different, tone would be different, message would be different, right? It was maybe okay for you because that's who you were, but it's like that's not who they are. So you really shouldn't do this because you don't have the capacity to be flexible like you, right? So if you
Sure.
start doing this, one of my kids, and you don't know flexibility, then shooting from the hip is not who you are. You might want to think through things. For you, it's kind of like, don't overthink it. Do what you think, go ahead, shoot from the hip, and I got your back. Right? Different story, different
Right.
results. Anyway, that's
Yeah.
parenting.
Well, we're about 42 minutes in.
Yep.
So, and I think that's a good stopping point. And I think we have some good foundational stuff. Um, I think maybe just Monday afternoons is a good time. It's a good time for me.
That's
Technically,
good
I'm at
time.
work, but
Yeah, I'm okay. So it's good time for me, so we can do that. But again, I think this is, like I said, this is real foundational stuff that we did.
yeah,
Now we can put it in certain situations going forward about, like I said,
talking
work
about
balance, sports,
we're not talking sports,
relationship with siblings,
sure,
if any,
relationships, significant others.
a relationship altogether. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, for better or for worse, and I don't know, I guess, and I don't have experience with my friends' families, um, but right, like you and mom would never like. I didn't even have a concept that you would have dated before mom until I got to the age that that like obviously, right?
Yeah.
So like that's something that I'm like you and I mom I think tried once, and that was a disaster, but never had a conversation where it was like, oh Ryan, when you're going out to date, or like these are these are my experiences dating, these are the things that I ran into. And I think in large part you don't need to touch on dating outside of maybe specific cases with your children because they're just gonna mess up anyway.
Well, I mean, there are boundaries, and
Yeah,
so I don't
and
think
then
we're
there are boundaries, sure.
and I don't think they're and it's one of those things that I think you don't see us that way. Going to your point,
Yeah,
so to us to introduce that into parenthood is weird. I know it's obvious things that you might want to do. Maybe I told you to open the door for her, especially if it's a date, first
sure.
date, or you go to the prom, sure, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, but other than that, well, let's be clear. We might be married 30 years, but we're still trying to figure out a relationship. So who are we to give relationship advice? I mean, okay, we have 30 years of marriage, almost 31, but still, it's like yours is different with other
Right.
people. There were instances that we said, yeah, probably not a good choice. Let me tell you why. And I've done that, with my kids a few times. I think you've been subject to that, to give you some honest advice. But that's when it's got to be really critical. It's
Yeah,
got
yeah,
to
yeah.
be really a certain point of you need to, and I know the at least two conversations I had with you,
Yep.
others as well, but I mean, with you in
Sure, sure,
particular.
sure. Me
And I
specifically.
said, this is what I believe, and I think you need to know this because it's critical as to who you are as a human being and your personality and so on and so forth, your character.
I agree.
So those conversations I'd have. But other than that, no, we it didn't even cross our mind. Maybe it's instinctual. It didn't cross our mind to
Yeah.
talk about relationships. I will tell you, it was important to teach you how to dress. I had that conversation with your wife, and it's kind of like, I think it's important to know certain things. And in my case, it was, for the occasion, and mom too, but for the right occasion, this is what you're supposed to do. Whether you do it or not is up to you
You sure
going
you had
forward.
this conversation with my wife? Because she still doesn't think I know how to dress myself.
Actually, that's not what she told me. That's what she told me, is that you can clean up nice. And it's like, yeah, because he was
Oh.
trained that. Now, it doesn't mean you will. That's what I go back to. It's more about, like anything else about the boundaries. We taught you what they are. Whether you choose to stick within the boundaries or not are up to you. But what we've established what those are. When you go to a wedding, funeral, whatever it is,
Right.
this is what you should be expected to do. If you choose not to, either because you don't want to, or challenge the fundamentals, okay, it's fine, right? I don't care. But at least I wouldn't want you to go out and like, I never knew that I was supposed to do this in this kind of social engagement. This was the rule. You do know. You know how to use the right fork and spoon for the most part. My guess is whether you will just start a food fight anyway. Okay, I get that, right? But and I don't mind that. I'm just telling you. But if you had to, you knew
But it
which
would be a
fork.
probably table set food fight. Damn it.
Pretty much. Exactly. So that's what life's about. We set the boundaries. You guys choose to go outside of them. Sometimes we're okay with them. Sometimes we're not. We never tell you which ones are good and bad, or which
Right.
ones will freak us out and which ones don't. That's the secret to parenting. But anyway, you're right. We covered a lot. Do what you
Yeah.
want with that.
And yeah,
Uh,
I think it's getting a little long winded at this point, and
yep.
be better
Well, it's
off
kind
if
of
we.
quick. And then, so next time we'll talk about certain subjects, and then we stay on topic, and it's quicker. So,
I think that's a good idea. So awesome. I'm gonna go ahead and
okay.
just stop recording.